Good evening. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph and I am the host of this show. This is a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So this is day 16 of our series, Progressive Rock Albums from the 1980s. So for those of you who have not been on here for this before, or haven't seen this before, basically I'm doing a one album per group, 31 albums for the month of progressive rock that I have not heard before. None of these albums I've heard before. And it's basically four categories. Groups that I've been very familiar with, may own quite a bit of their stuff, but for some reason don't have this particular album. Or it could be bands that I have some of their stuff, but not a lot of their stuff, and I don't have this album either. Could be a band that I've heard of, but haven't actually listened to much of their stuff, and not to this album at all. And then it could be bands I've never heard of, who I have no knowledge of, or the album. Okay, so today that's one of those albums we're going to be doing. This band is called Cardiacs. It's the Seaside is the album, released back in '83, I believe, on a private label or an individual label, but released as a cassette. So I had actually 2 or 3 issues about doing this when I was going to take it off, and then I said to myself, you know what, I'm just going to continue moving along and see how this works out. So I looked it up. It was originally released on cassette only. I think they probably sold it at their concerts that they did, and then it was reissued in 1990 on a vinyl. I don't know, it may be on CD now, I'm not sure. I didn't get that far in that research. Anyways, clearly after the first couple tracks I was about to pull it, because I think it's more, I thought, and it is, it's not, these guys are not really a progressive rock band. They do have a lot of progressive elements, but I kept going one track at a time, saying I'll pull it if I don't like what I hear. I liked everything about the album. There's lots of good points about the album, but each song I could hear various different progressive elements to the music, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to give them the due anyways, despite the fact that, you know, it'd be stretching it to call these guys progressive rock. They're not. They're probably more new wave-ish and punky than they are progressive rock, but they have a lot of different genres mixed in together here. It's kind of an interesting mix, actually. Very different than what you would normally get from, I think, a lot of stuff. And, you know, it really shows that the era of the new wave really was a lot of the progressive stuff kind of channeled into that, and into some punk movement as well, even though people say punk rock killed progressive rock. Well, it might have, but it only maybe killed the progressive rock from the 1970s. As we know, plenty of progressive rock came back. Anyways, there are 9 tracks on this particular album. So the overall feel of this album is you have basically the 2 vocalists, which are brothers, Jim and Tim. I only know this because I had to look it up a bit, because it wasn't easy to find what I was looking for. It wasn't part of their discography, so that confused me, but it was because it was originally released as a cassette. So after a bit, and I established what it is, I discovered a few things about them. Anyways, there are 9, like I said, 9 tracks on this. Well, I'm just repeating myself here, but anyways, so the feel for the album is kind of a new wave-ish feel overall, I think. Some punk, definitely some punk in here, some real punk flavor to it, but there's a lot of different noises, and the keyboards, and at times the keyboards and the guitar, the bass, and the other little instruments they put in there give this real kind of progressive feel to it too. So there, the other couple of real dominant factors on this particular album is that it's, other than those things I've said, it's also the vocalist has that kind of new wave-ish vocal sound to his voice, or the vocalists, I should say. So you get that kind of sound that you would find on a new wave album. And also it's very high, fast-paced. All the songs are fast-paced. Some of the songs, and we'll get into the individual songs in a few minutes, but some of the songs have a kind of slow part. They may open slowly and then go into this quick pace, or they may open quickly and go into a slow pace. The slow paces very much feel like progressive rock, I think, in my feelings, and very interesting noises. I think the drummer is very good in this band as well. So, what other commonalities do they have here? The titles are a little bit odd, remind me of new wave-ish titles, so we'll get into that as well. Yeah, and overall I would say if I was just listening to it in the background and not really paying attention to it like I do when I do this, I would not have labeled it a progressive rock band at all. I would have said, oh, it's kind of a new wave-ish punk band. More new wave-ish than punk, but there are some definite progressive elements here. So, you know what, the part of doing these kind of things is to discover something new that may lead you in another direction, right? So, here we go. So the first song is called Gibber and Twitch. It's got a kind of a poppy feel to it. It's a new wave-ish poppy feel to it, with some real interesting noises and sounds in here. The vocals are kind of jumpy as well. Like they kind of, the music's fast-paced and jumpy, bump, 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 that kind of rhythm all the time. And the vocals, I think, really mimic that quite a bit throughout the entire album. It starts out that way, and that just continues throughout the album. So the next song is called Gina Lola Brigida. Of course, only a new wave band would think of such a title. Very poppy, more kind of punky elements here. This is a little bit more punky than the other song. Very fast paced again. Vocals are very punky. The organ adds some strength to the kind of sound that we're hearing here. The guitar solo and is kind of overlapping with a keyboard solo at the same time. And when I say the word solo, that's really stretching it, really. I have to say for this album, it's a bit stretching it. They're more like bits. It's like quick little gibberish guitar bit or a quick little keyboard bit. Nothing really long, nothing longer than 5 or 6 seconds anyways. So it gives that choppy feel to the album, that kind of boppy feeling, if you like, if you prefer that title. Then the next one is called Hello Mr. Sparrow, another typical kind of new wave-ish type of title. Fast-paced with some very different kind of noises here, more than even the other two songs. It's moving towards a more progressive sound in this particular track. The keys and synthesizers are very good in the background. They're more stable than the other two songs in the background, giving that kind of background feel that's kind of progressive. Then we get into the It's a Lovely Day. It's a quirky kind of time signature song. It's got these little different time signatures, a quirky sound to it. Some odd mixes of noises again. That's actually the odd mixes of noises on this particular track, though, kind of remind me of some of that King Crimson stuff, you know. But the difference, like it has that King Crimson flavor to it, but doesn't really sound anything like King Crimson in one sense of it, because King Crimson tends to be a little slower and more methodical about the use of these different noises and time signatures they use, where this band is much quicker pace on it. That's the big difference, I think. But it's got a catchy beat, this song. I like this song. It's one of my favorites. The next one's called, A Wooden Fish on Wheels. Okay. Some progressive points here, especially in the opening part, and then it gets kind of more keyboard dominated towards the middle of the song. A nice little solo bit here. I think it's a keyboard, but it could be a guitar bit. I'm not sure. The beat is very catchy. I like the beat. That's another word that kind of describes these guys. The beats are a little bit catchy. But again, very fast-paced for the most part, except for they tend to be when they're doing the new wave-ish punky sound, it's very fast-paced. When the guy's singing, it's very fast-paced, but when they they get into the more progressive elements, it tends to slow down quite a bit. That's a trend I see here with this album. The next one up is called Hope Day. I would say that last track's probably my favorite on the album. I wouldn't officially. I just like that track. It's really put together well. It fits together. It's not so jerky as some of the other tracks. Like the problem with their fast-paced part and their slow-paced part is it's not always a smooth transition. The next song, Hope Day, keyboard synthesizer opening with a quiet percussion bit, and then again then it speeds up and gets a lot heavier. Some very high speed vocals on this, higher than normal, I think. Lots of interesting drum keyboards and guitar bits like added out throughout the song. Yeah, this is never boring. This album that's the one thing I'll say about it. It's never boring. Other than the only boring part about it is that each track, while having all this stuff on it, tends to follow a trend right through the entire album. So if you like this stuff, you're gonna love this album. Okay. So the next track up is called Ice a Spot and a Dot on a Dog. Okay. Very yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was thinking about what I wrote there, but it's actually very punky with heavy guitars and some guitar riffs and solo bits. So you get this heavy riff followed by a little guitar bit, and then some more heavy riff followed by another little guitar bit. Lots of keyboards, and anytime there's those slow parts, the keyboards and that, they kind of moderate the whole song. They bring a level to it. Just when you're getting kind of tired of that jumpy, quirky bit, this keyboard comes in. It kind of gives you a break in the middle of the song, and then it goes on to that again, right? That's the way they pretty much operate here. Yeah, and the vocals, of course, are, again, very new wave-ish. When I say new wave, I'm talking about, I don't know what they call it now, but back then we called it new wave. That's what I called it. So then you have the eighth track, which is called RES. I'm not sure. It's probably an abbreviation for something, but I'm not sure what. This one's a little bit different. It has a little kind of a goofy opening, I guess the best way. It kind of has this, how do you say this? So it's like, for the time period, it would have been 1980. So it's got this kind of keyboard opening that is like a video game opening. It sounds like you're listening to a video game. That's the feeling I would have got if I was listening to it back in 1980. Of course, our video games are very different now. The sax and keys give it this kind of toned down bit, and then you have some really Devo-like vocals here. I think he's just a girl. It's just a girl, the girl I want, like that kind of vocal. That's the song that it reminds me of, actually. It's a little bit more progressive towards the end of the album as well, and some real different feel to this particular track because of that video part. I think that video part comes back a little bit towards the middle of the song too, if I remember correctly. Okay, so the number 9 song, which is the last song on the album, is To Go Off and Things. That's what it calls. That's the name of the song, To Go Off and Things. Serious high-speed opening with some keyboards and just like riffing sound, and then a solo bit on the source, on the overall sounding of it. So they do some kind of little bits again, but this one's a little bit longer than some of the other ones. Yeah, and it's just basically the same kind of thing going on here that you get throughout the album. Some real quiet parts with some real jumpy, quirky stuff. And that seems to be their modus operandi, But I like it. I have to say, I did like the album. It definitely is not progressive rock, so probably shouldn't even be included in this list, but it had enough progressive elements that, because I was already into it and listening to it, I decided I would continue with it. Probably should have ditched it when I couldn't find the when it wasn't in the discography, and then I had to go look for it, and And then I found out that it was a demo tape record by the group or by somebody on their own private enterprise had recorded this, and they were probably again selling it at their concerts. And then once they got their own label and were making albums, it was probably re-released at some point on vinyl. And I went with the original vinyl release, or actually the original vinyl release was of the original cassette things. Like there was, if that makes any sense. They did have another album I think called Toys World, which was kind of the same. It was a cassette release, but they had lost some of the tracks on that one, so that's why I decided on this particular one. Yeah, so very interesting kind of, if I was going to put these guys in a genre, I would say new wave, punk, a little punk. There might be actually more progressive movement here than punk movement. The vocals though lend themselves really much to that new wave sound, very, very new wave-ish vocals. If you were to put more of progressive vocals in there, then the album might actually move into the progressive field. But anyways, a good listen to. I'm glad I did it. It was kind of like reminiscent of a couple of the other albums I did, except for some of those albums I didn't really warm up to, where this one kind of is kind of an interesting album. I would listen to this again, not a problem. So anyways, there you have it. The Cardiacs with their Seaside cassette, eventually vinyl album, released I think was in '83, reissued in 1990 on vinyl, and I'm going to guess that it's probably on CD at this point, but not probably easy to find. So anyways, I hope you liked this particular episode and this video. If you did, please like and hit the subscribe button, as it's much appreciated. You can also hit the bell if you want to be notified of my videos. I do quite a few videos, probably more than quite a few people, but I like to keep it busy, and I really enjoy doing this, to be honest with you. It's kind of my side hobby, that and my baseball. Yeah, love my baseball. Anyways, I hope you like and subscribe, and leave your comments, what your experience is with this album. What do you think of it? Does it really have enough progressive rock on it to really qualify it for something like this, or is it maybe stretching it a bit? I'm not sure. You let me know. Okay. Have yourself a good night, and this video will be out in the morning. Bye.